A North Carolina trustee says it's time to leave the ACC, and when your trustees are pushing for you to exit the conference, you're probably going to exit the conference. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thanks for making this show your first listen every single day. Today, we cover if the Big 12 can land North Carolina, as it seems imminent that they will leave the Atlantic Coast Conference, as well as Kansas State being fraudulent this season in football. And at the end of the show, Big 12 quarterback power rankings that don't have Shedeur Sanders at #1. We start in Chapel Hill. It was Greg Flugar who brought this to my attention. UNC Chapel Hill trustee and former chair Dave Boliek says it's time to go. He told that to WRALSportsFan.com. They're the one that carried the story. Here's how it reads. Florida State and Clemson have sued the ACC, seeking to lessen their fees and penalties for leaving the league. Boliek said he wants UNC to join a higher revenue league. I am advocating for that, he says. That's what we need to do. We need to do everything we can to get there. It is no longer, will North Carolina leave? It is the powerful people that be in Chapel Hill saying, how do we get where we want to go in a higher revenue league? Now, your first thought with that is likely that North Carolina wants to go to the Big Ten or the SEC. You hear higher revenue. Did you know, based on TV contracts and TV security, the Big 12 is in a better spot than the ACC on a team-to-team basis? The biggest factor in that is that Florida State and Clemson are leaving the conference. There is a look-in clause, according to the College Football Playoff Committee, that will move the number down, the revenue number down per conference based on how you expand moving forward. Meaning when the top two dogs in the ACC leave, they will make significantly less than the Big 12. A higher revenue conference doesn't exactly mean the Big Ten or the SEC. And that's North Carolina's goal. Don't get me wrong. I do believe that that university wants to be in the Power too. Who wouldn't? If they called you and you're the athletic director or president at Texas Tech tomorrow and said, you want to be an SEC team? You're probably going to say yes. Thanks, Kirby Hocutt, for staying in the Big 12 for now at the very least. If you're North Carolina, you're doing the same thing. You're lobbying to get into one of those two conferences. However, there's an issue there. When it comes to the SEC, we've had conversations about how Charlotte's a big place for ESPN, the SEC to merge, and having North Carolina in that footprint is not a bad thing. Yeah, but Greg Sankey seems pretty comfortable with not expanding right now. Everything that he has said is that they're going to keep things slow, play the long game, and take their time on where they move the conference going forward. They don't want to oversaturate the league, and North Carolina is not a football powerhouse. This is not a legitimate top tier, year in, year out, top dog in college football, and the SEC doesn't need to stick its neck out for it. For the Big Ten, you're saying, well, that's an easy fit. The AAU status, North Carolina's a nerd school. They can certainly go there, and sure, they're smart, and I wouldn't be shocked, but aren't Florida State and Clemson the targets for the Big Ten? Haven't there been murmurs and rumors that the Big Ten wants to continue its stronghold by going to the Southeast and pick up those two schools? If they do that, why would they keep expanding past 20 teams? We know that these conferences don't want to get too big yet. The oversaturation in college football is something you want to avoid. And the Big Ten is already harboring schools like Illinois, Purdue, Northwestern, not major moneymakers in college football, and that's what you want. When they get Clemson and Florida State, the odds of them getting North Carolina as well or going after North Carolina just aren't as strong, in my opinion, as many people are putting out there. And again, the SEC feels comfortable. So the Big 12, I get the North Carolina fans don't want to see that. They don't want to hear that. However, it's got to be on the table. The idea of a Power 3 is something that would not frustrate an ESPN or a Fox or an NBC if they ever want to get involved more holistically. And to me, it's not that crazy of an idea that ESPN would fund a Power 3. Making the moves, it's not the legislature in North Carolina that's moving things around and putting North Carolina State together and saying, you go here and you go there. It's not that. It's ESPN. It's the TV networks that say, I want you to play in that conference. I want you to move to that conference. The way they dole this stuff out, the way they dole out the money specifically is in proportion that creates more revenue in college football from major matchups. And I don't think having a Power 3 is going to hurt that. There is more money that can be made there, in my opinion. There's also an idea of the ACC becoming something new. It's this same trustee, Dave Boliak, who told WRAL, or the alternative to North Carolina joining a higher revenue league is the ACC is going to have to reconstruct itself. I think all options are the table, end quote. All options are on the table. What do we mean by ACC reconstruct itself? How does that work? I mean, North Carolina is one of the Magnificent Seven. They were one of the first schools who said, what would it look like if we left? They were exploring the grant of rights that conference has and the stronghold it has on all of its teams. And now one of your people in power is saying, well, I guess we're going to leave unless you reconstruct yourself. ESPN can drop the ACC's contract in 2027, choose to drop it in 2025. We will know very soon whether or not that league has a deal with ESPN moving forward into the 2030s. They won't. I don't think they will. North Carolina's not going to sit around and wait for that. The only reconstructing that can be done is Jim Phillips to be a competent commissioner. I don't think he's the worst in the world. He's not George Kliavkoff, but he's not looking that far off. I don't think there's a reconstruction plan there. The only way you could reconstruct is to merge with the Big 12, and Brett Yormark has too much leverage to want to do that. Therefore, if the reconstruction option's off the table, I don't even know what that means. I can't even deduce what the guy's trying to say here. Reconstruct what? How? Kick teams out? See you Boston College? Buy Syracuse? Try to get more money from ESPN by consolidating? Possibly. I don't think it's going to happen. See you later, Wake Forest. I think the reconstruct word is just something that's thrown out there for kicks and giggles and means nothing more than North Carolina is going to leave. But let's touch the bases, check the boxes, and say we could stay in the ACC just in case, even though there's not the just in case. It doesn't exist. Polite, fun pleasantry. But in the end, North Carolina is going to leave the ACC. I mean, when people in power are saying stuff like this, it's a pretty clear sign. And when they do, I don't think it's that far off the idea that they go to the Big 12. Don't be shocked. Be shocked by other things that aren't this. On Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's Locked On Big 12 episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors keeps your ride or die alive. The reason that I like eBay Motors is the fact that I like to break my car sometimes. I went out the other day and I was driving my car and you heard underneath it, there was a plastic piece that was hanging. I go to eBay Motors and say, what is this plastic piece? They say, cut it off and buy a new one at eBay Motors because they had the piece and it fit guaranteed with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit. They also have superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, power, speed, style. eBay Motors has you covered. With that guaranteed fit, it's guaranteed to fit. eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. For all of your automotive needs, millions of parts that are guaranteed to fit your ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. It is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, and exclusion apply at ebaymotors.com. Eric, the Kansas State Wildcats have been hailed as one of the top 3-4 teams in the Big 12 going into 2024. And this is almost reminiscent. I saw a post about this on Twitter, almost reminiscent of the way that we talked about Texas Tech being a lock for Arlington last year. They were the sexy pick. And then they just weren't that good. They regressed under Joey McGuire. What are the odds that Kansas State's in that same boat? Are we hyping up this team too much?
The odds are there. I'm not going to sit here with my purple tinting glasses, which are firmly on, by the way. I'll get to that. You have the opportunity to go 7-6 or 7-5, 8-4. Iowa State a few years back, I don't know if you remember, I think it was like 2021. They were picked to do amazing. I think they finished 7-5. So
supposed to be their best season all time.
But they ended up the most together team of all time.
Yeah. Matt Campbell's real good at the whole togetherness thing.
I can sit here and I can give you a bunch of reasons. First, what I want to do is sell everyone on Avery Johnson. Mm-hmm. You just came off a Big 12 championship 2 years ago with Will Howard, and Will Howard's coming into the next season, and he is getting his job battled for by Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson legitimately took productive snaps, had to be benched in the Texas Tech game where Avery Johnson then ran for 5 touchdowns in one single game. You're talking about a quarterback that just transferred to Ohio State who would have lost his job against Avery Johnson at Kansas State. So, if you watch that bowl game, man, there's sparks, and I think he's going to be something special. Now, when we get to our quarterback rankings later, I'm going to show him some love. I'm not over the moon like some K-State fans are. I think here's what can happen. Kansas State drops a loss early in the season. Let it be 2 seasons ago. We lost to the Green, the Green Wave. I'm trying.
No, Tulane.
Oh my goodness!
Who is on the schedule again on the road?
On the schedule again. Listen, that I will never again take them for granted. I mean, it kind of seems like a K-State thing to do. And now my overall point is just that the Big 12 is kind of like there isn't a powerful team, and there are a few weak teams, but there's 16 teams, which is kind of crazy to say. 10, probably 10 to 12 of those are pretty competitive. Yep. So is it crazy to have a team that's picked to do well go 8-4? I don't think so. Now, do I think we will? I have us going 11-1, 10-2. Very high standards, but I think we reloaded. We got Dante Cephas at wide receiver. We got Avery Johnson taking over. Obviously showed his stuff against NC State in the Pop-Tart Bowl. And then you have Dylan Edwards, who just transferred out of Colorado. Yep. Not to mention, he won't be starting. I think what he will be doing is going to slot wide receiver while we have DJ Giddens take a majority of the snaps as he's earned. It's going to be a dangerous offense. Defense, reloaded there. We got Monroe out of I'm trying to think. He transferred out of UTEP. So you're looking at players that we wanted to get in the offseason who we had targeted, and we got him. So, if the coach's plan comes, when he sits in the offseason, he goes, this is how we're going to win the Big 12 championship next year. He got all those players he wanted.
The descent that I will give on Avery Johnson, I think that he could be a top 3, top 5 quarterback for sure in a loaded Big 12 quarterback class. Look, there are guys like Cam Rising and Shadur Sanders and Noah Fafita who could make a huge splash this season. And Avery Johnson's name is in the middle of that billboard. What if he is Blake Shapen? Somebody's throwing something right now. The reason I say that, Blake Shapen's first start was in the Big 12 championship game. He had come in due to injury to Gary Bohannon, and he breaks a facility record for most consecutive completions at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, a pretty damn big facility. And then he just doesn't really do anything big against. We were all talking about how, oh, wow, Blake Shapen could be a top 3 quarterback in the Big 12. The dude looked great, but the sample size was too small. Is the sample size too small for Avery Johnson?
Yes, it is. He came in and he came in against Missouri, averaged 6.9 yards per carry in that game. We didn't play him in the fourth quarter. I genuinely think we probably would have beaten Missouri if he played him more. And then he came in versus Tech, ran for 5 touchdowns. We also had Cooper Beebe. Yeah, amazing. And then came in and played fantastic against NC State. With all that being said, you can't tell me a true freshman is the next thing since sliced bread just off those 3 games. Do I think he's a fantastic football player? And do I think he's going to be top 5, top 3 in the Big 12 quarterback at the end of the season? Yes. But you're absolutely right. There is a dissenting opinion. It is correct. We are overhyped, but this is the greatest QB prospect in our program's history. And I did want to connect to something you said earlier to Blake Shapen. I don't even know his name, and I know this is messed up. The Texas Tech quarterback. He was the highest rated quarterback signee of all time for them. And now he's battling for the starting job 3 seasons later.
Baron Morton.
Thank you. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, college football is a crazy thing, but what seems like when he got on campus, they knew. And he's recruiting too, man. We're seeing a recruiting surge as well. It's an exciting time to be a football fan for K-State. After my time, when I got there in 2018, we still had Snyder for his last year, and we should have lost to Kansas that year. So
yeah.
We had a rough time.
That was not a very good Kansas team in 2018.
It was not a very good Kansas team.
Different time.
You said they regressed, Texas Tech did. The one thing that I would say against that is Chris Klieman, besides a COVID year, has not regressed. It would be a first season to regress. I know you could kind of make an argument for this year, but we also won the Pop-Tart Bowl. So it's like, did we have a bad season? I just think we met expectations, maybe a little under. still, man, super excited about this upcoming season.
I think the only one that that game in Ames, I know it's kind of haunts Kansas State fans, but that would have been a fun one to win for Kansas State. It would have been a fun one to win.
Oh, this season?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. I don't want to talk about it. I plead the fifth, man. That hurt.
Still, it was my sophomore year at Baylor was that COVID year, and Kansas State came to town, and it's one of the saddest things I've ever seen. 2-7 Baylor getting its second win against Kansas State that night, and I thought, Chris Conlon's going to get fired, and he didn't. He hasn't gotten fired. Things have worked out pretty well for them, actually. Before we close this one and go into our Big 12 quarterback power rankings, I think that there are easy stretches of schedule for Kansas State that will aid them in a conference title. Look at Colorado, easy. Houston, Arizona, Cincinnati are 3 straight games in a row. Like, there are at least 6 guaranteed wins, and most Big 12 teams don't have that liberty. I think Kansas State's going to benefit from that. Moving forward, let's talk Big 12 quarterbacks and how Kansas State can benefit from a Big 12 quarterback. Is it the top of the power rankings? Maybe this is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Look, the classic Monopoly is great. It's one of my favorite things to play when I'm sitting around the campfire with a bunch of my friends. And now I can do it when there's not a campfire available on the go from Monopoly Go on the App Store or Google Play. Game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go and how right now you can team up with your friends. Build unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything that you win or rent frenzies. There's something fun to discover at Monopoly Go. Download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. It's Monopoly Go. Game on. Today's show is also brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Look, Yahoo Finance is where I go as a 23-year-old young buck to learn how to do money. I have no idea what I'm doing. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. So if I have a Roth IRA is, a 401k, I've got to learn all that stuff. Yahoo Finance will consolidate that information and show it to me in one place to keep it incredibly easy to manage it all. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level with Yahoo Finance. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That is yahoofinance.com. Let's talk Big 12 quarterback power rankings with Kansas State expert Eric, Special Teams U on Twitter. The greatest Big 12 burner, quite possibly. Eric, let's start with number 1. The best quarterback in the Big 12 has to be Shedeur Sanders, right?
No. I have him as 2.
Wow.
I have him as 2. If you look last season at who put up when the competition got tough, I have to have Noah Fafita at number 1. I know he threw for 2,800 and Shedeur Sanders threw for 3,200. Doesn't matter when you don't win, sadly. So I know part of it was on the defense. Watching him play against Oklahoma, he played amazing. And then he also slaughtered Utah like 2 weeks prior. I was doing some research for this, and I was just baffled at how bad that game was.
10 wins. Noah Fafita won 10 games at Arizona. Shedeur Sanders did not do that at Colorado, only winning 4 of them. I thought for sure my $250 bet at Colorado over 4.5 wins would hit, and it did not. Number 1, Noah Fafita. Meaning number 2, you said Shedeur Sanders. Let's go 3 then. Who is 3rd in a loaded quarterback class?
It's time for the glasses, man. I got Avery Johnson, number 3.
You dog.
Absolutely disgusting.
All right, hold on. I like Avery Johnson. I think there's a way to qualify him top 3. But we've seen him in 3 games. You know, like a good, strong, quality performance in 3 games. Is that enough to make him top 3, though? I
am going off of personally being
vibes.
Vibes are right up there in the ranking system, man. I have to say that from everything I've read, for everything I've watched, to everything I've seen on Avery Johnson, being as like close to K-State as I am,
yep.
It would baffle me if he did not kill it this year. Now, if we were to go off talent immediately, he's probably 5. I'll give you that. Now, who do I think is going to dazzle most this year? I don't see KJ Jefferson. I don't see Jalen Daniels, and I don't see Rising like wowing you on the screen as much as Avery Johnson will, based especially on his play style, man. Yes, purple tinted glasses, absolutely. He is too high. I'll admit it right now. But Avery Johnson is that guy.
There's the top 3. Noah Fafita at 1. At 2 is Shedeur Sanders. 3 is Avery Johnson. Before we give you the middle of the pack, let's go back to number 10. I think the back half, those last 6 quarterbacks, it's just kind of a toss-up, give or take. A couple of guys out of like a BYU or a Baylor. Maybe not even Baylor. Maybe Houston, Cincinnati. What are they going to look like? We'll determine that later. But number 10 on your QB power rankings, Eric.
Alan Bowman for Oklahoma State.
34-year-old Alan Bowman.
So my thinking on this is you have Mike Gundy, and you have an amazing experienced head coach. And if there's one thing an amazing experienced head coach is going to do, it's going to improve his quarterbacks as they go on. So I expect him to take a big step forward. He was not impressive last year, and we got slaughtered in Stillwater by him, which hurt even more. So he did
go to the Big 12 championship. He did, it's as much flack as I give him. He's a Big 12 championship attending quarterback, and that says something. Number 9.
DeQuan Finn.
Baylor guy. Yeah,
I do. MAC player of the year, offensive player of the year. You look at him, you see what he did at Toledo. I think it was the first time in since 2017 that they've had
been a while.
Yeah. So, you look at that and you think what can kind of jumpstart everything for Baylor and Baylor's program entirely. It just seemed like you guys were on such a trajectory, especially with that Big 12 championship. And then I don't know that just the wheels fell off. It's been a rough sled ever since. But if there's a player, especially, I literally watched some highlight tape for this, man. He looks good. He looks like a guy who will come in and will make plays happen, and Baylor should be excited for him.
Number 7.
Well, we got 8. I got Rocco Beck for Iowa State. He whooped our ass. Pardon me. He whooped our butts in Manhattan during the snow game alongside Abu Sama. He ran for 7 touchdowns on us.
Yeah.
He's only going to improve. I think he's going to be a sophomore, I think he's going to be a sophomore. Yeah. He has arm talent. He has all the talent there. I just don't like Iowa State, which kind of moved him down the ranking as well.
Number 7.
Garrett Green, West Virginia.
Yes. And I think Garrett Green is a really good quarterback, too. It's just
I do.
In this class,
It's really hard. I'm sure you can kind of pick now who the next 3 are going to be. It's hard to make a case for him. He's going to be so important to that offense. He's going to be everything for them. And I think he's ready to make that step. So,
yeah. Who's in there at 6?
Jalen Daniels, Kansas. It is. I can't rank him above KJ Jefferson. He lost to him last time they played. And I will say something right now. You look at KU last season, and you tell me if Jalen Daniels was the missing piece or was their play calling and Jason Bean being just as good. I promise you, Jalen Daniels is a great quarterback, but he is not a top 3.
At 6, Daniels. Number 5.
KJ Jefferson. I have him making a big step, catching up to the big boys for UCF. That's a massive transfer portal pickup.
Yeah, that's a big dude, man.
He was getting hosed at Arkansas. I worked with an Arkansas fan, and after every game they lost, he'd just be like, "Man, I feel bad for KJ."
Yep.
He had that whole Saban thing where Saban's like, I've never seen him throw another grown man off himself like that. He's a hell of a football player.
Yep, Danny Nose got fired because he was such a bad offensive coordinator trying to man the KJ Jefferson offense last year.
I know.
Meaning number 4 outside of the top 3, controversial, got to be Cam Rising.
It's Cam Rising.
So let's go 1 through 10. Give them to me again, and we'll try to break it down.
Number 1 starting.
Yep.
Starting at 1. Noah Fafita, Shedeur Sanders, Avery Johnson, Cameron Rising, KJ Jefferson, Jalen Daniels, Garrett Green, Rocco Beck, Daquan Finn, and Alan Bowman.
Confident. I feel confident in a good portion of this. I think Johnson. Now, look, if you tell me this is the end of the year, this is what the rankings will be, it's tough. And nobody can argue that. It's like, oh, yeah, Avery Johnson could very well be a top 3 quarterback. I think now that might be looking a little bit too far ahead of yourself, especially putting Cam Rising. When healthy, Cam Rising could be number 1. When healthy, Daniels could be number 1. It's just a matter of Shedeur Sanders being at 2 is going to shock a lot of people. But Eric, the time, the effort, the scouting report that you put into this, I don't hate your list.
I appreciate it. I know it's going to get some flack, but Avery Johnson, yes, before anyone says it is too high, I also love my university. Cameron Rising, man, he's important to that Utah offense. If you look at the past years, they needed him. So, yeah, I mean, looking over it again, probably some adjustments could be made, but I think that the final outlook of the Big 12 will be somewhat near this.
Eric, for folks that want to find your immaculate Twitter takes, where do they go?
Special Teams I am off the wall. Please don't come to me for serious sports takes all the time. I like to have fun. Me and my buddies do a podcast at the Mobcast where we talk like 3 dudes at a bar, just shooting the stuff, man. Hey, Drake, thanks for having me on, man. This is cool. I used to listen all the time to this going to and from Manhattan when I was getting ready for football season. It's really surreal to be on the show.
100%, dude. Anytime. We need more everyman college football fans that also work in not just media and the Twitter space, but, talk shop. I think people they resonate more with the good old boys talking shop. That's Eric. Insert last name here. We can't put it there because the sources, they are too mysterious. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.